She didn't walk away because you weren't good enough. She walked away because she convinced herself that there was something better out, there's something more exciting, more validating, more thrilling. And in that moment, she didn't choose growth, she chose curiosity. She didn't choose depth, she chose novelty. And now you're sitting there questioning your worth, wondering what you did wrong. But the truth is, her leaving was never a reflection of your value. It was a reflection of her blindness to it. When someone truly sees you, when they truly appreciate the depth of your loyalty, your effort, your presence, they don't leave people, don't abandon what they believe is rare. She walked because she thought she could upgrade, because she believed the grass might be greener on the other side, and because in her mind you were just another guy who would always be there. And when people start taking you for granted, it's never because you weren't enough, it's because they stopped looking at what was right in front of them. She thought you'd chase her, she thought you'd crumble, she thought your world would fall apart the moment she disappeared, and maybe for a while it did. Maybe you did lose sleep, maybe you did go silent, maybe you did start doubting everything about yourself. But here's what matters most: you didn't stay there, you didn't let her leaving destroy you, you didn't let rejection become your identity. And that decision, that shift, that inner moment where you decided, I am not going to beg, that is the moment she started losing the very thing she thought she could easily replace. Because while she was out there looking for someone better, you were becoming someone better. You were leveling up, you were healing, you were reflecting, and more importantly, you were learning how to love yourself. In a way that didn't depend on her presence for validation. She walked away because she thought someone else could love her more than you did. But what she didn't realize is that no one will ever love her with the kind of sincerity that comes from a man who gave her his all and got overlooked anyway. And one day she's going to remember how you never lied, how you never wavered, how you always showed up, how you gave her peace, not chaos. And that memory will hit her when she's with someone who gives her attention but no depth, someone who buys her dinner but doesn't understand her silence, someone who calls her beautiful but doesn't protect her heart. She'll remember how safe she felt in your arms, how real your words were, how calm your energy was. And in that moment of comparison, she'll realize she traded gold for glitter. She'll realize that in trying to find better, she lost the best. And that's the pain that lingers the longest, the one that says, I didn't know what I had until it was gone. But here's what matters even more: by the time she comes back, by the time she realizes your worth, by the time she feels that ache of regret, you won't be the same man anymore. You won't be the man who was waiting, hoping, holding space. You'll be the man who moved forward, who elevated, who stopped looking back, and started living a life that was never dependent on her approval. Because that's what happens when a man chooses himself. He becomes magnetic, he becomes powerful, he becomes untouchable, not because he's playing games, but because he finally knows that real love never leaves. When it's hard, it stays. When it's hard, and grows stronger through it. And anything less than that isn't worth his time. So let her go, let her chase what she thinks is better. Let her find out the hard way that emotional security, loyalty, effort, and depth are rare. Let her go, believe that attention means love, and let her discover that most people out there only want the surface, not the soul. And while she's out there learning those lessons, you'll be over here building yourself into someone she never thought you could become. And when she comes back, when she sends that message, when she tries to reconnect, when she pretends like she just wants to talk, you'll know exactly what it means. It means she finally realized what she had. It means reality finally caught up with fantasy. It means her ego has been humbled by the truth, and you'll have a choice: not to hurt her, not to play with her emotions, but to decide whether the man you've become still fits the woman who left you behind. Most of the time, she'll come back not because she loves you, but because the world didn't love her the way you did. And that's a lesson she needed to learn on her own. Sometimes her leaving was the best thing that ever happened to you. The version of you she left isn't the version she'll return to. And that is the part she never expected, because when she walked away, she thought time would freeze. She thought you'd stay stuck in the same place emotionally, mentally, even physically. But what she didn't realize is that the breakup wasn't the end of your growth. It was the beginning of it. She thought she had time. She thought you'd wait. She thought you'd sit in silence, missing her, while the world passed you by. And maybe for a moment you did. Maybe you spent nights staring at your phone, hoping for a text. Maybe you played back every moment, trying to understand where it went wrong. But something in you changed, something clicked, and instead of breaking down, you broke through. Instead of collapsing, you climbed, and that's the part of story she never saw coming. You stopped chasing her and started chasing your purpose. You stopped replaying her absence and started rewriting your future. You stopped begging for answers and started becoming one. And the man you are today is a completely different version of who you were when she said goodbye. You're sharper now, more focused, more grounded. Your energy is quieter, but stronger. Your standards are higher, not because you're bitter, but because you finally know your worth. The truth is, heartbreak can either destroy you or transform you, and you chose transformation. You chose to use pain as fuel. You chose to become the kind of man who doesn't just survive rejection, but uses it as a reason to rise. You went to war with your old self and came back undefeated. And when she sees you again, it won't just be the new clothes, the new hair, cut, the new routine. She'll see it in your eyes. She'll feel it in your presence. She'll know something is different, and that difference is you finally seeing yourself the way she never did. She'll try to spark old conversations, thinking the same words will work, but they won't, because you're not seeking closure anymore. You've already closed that chapter. She'll try to bring up the good times, and you'll remember them without needing to relive them. You'll hear the same voice, but it won't have the same pull, because the version of you she walked away from would have done anything to have her back. But the man you are now knows better, because now you see clearly. Now you understand that real love doesn't leave when it gets difficult. It grows deeper and stronger. Now you know that the person who truly values you doesn't need space to realize your worth. They already see it. Now you realize that peace is more important than potential, that someone who adds to your life doesn't have to be chased to stay in it. You've outgrown the version of yourself that needed validation. You've outgrown the version that over-explained, over-apologized, overextended. You've stopped trying to prove and started living in your truth. And that truth is simple. The man you are now doesn't settle. He doesn't shrink himself to keep someone else comfortable. He doesn't confuse attention with affection or apologies with accountability. You've built a life that doesn't revolve around someone else's presence or absence. You've built habits, goals, vision, discipline, and clarity. And she might still be beautiful. She might still have the same smile, the same laugh. But the spell is broken, because the illusion is gone. You've elevated, and she stayed the same. And now she's the one looking up. And it's not about revenge. It's not about ego. It's about realization. It's about knowing that sometimes people need to lose you to learn your value, but you don't have to take them back to teach them the lesson. You don't need to be the same man. She left so she can feel comfortable returning. You've grown past her expectations, and now the door she once walked out of doesn't lead to the same place, because that's what growth does. It changes everything. It changes how you speak, how you walk, how you choose. It changes your energy, and your energy doesn't beg anymore. It attracts. Your presence doesn't chase. It commands respect, not from pride, but from purpose. And if she ever comes back thinking she's coming back to the same man, she'll be in for a silent shock, because what hurts more than being replaced is realizing the person you left became everything you ever wanted. And now they no longer want you. Let her come back to a man who no longer needs her to feel whole. Let her see what real growth looks like. Let her understand what happens when a man chooses to rebuild himself from the ground up, without resentment, without noise, without the need to prove anything to anyone. She left one version of you, and that version is gone forever. Silence is your loudest response, and the moment you understand that is the moment everything shifts. Because when someone leaves, when they walk away, when they think they can just disappear, and you'll keep chasing, texting, calling, explaining, begging, you fall into the trap they expected you to fall into. But silence is what they never see coming, because silence speaks in a way noise never could. It speaks of power. It speaks of control. It speaks of a man who doesn't need to prove his worth to someone who couldn't see it. You don't need to explain your silence to anyone who left you confused. You don't owe closure to someone who walked away without giving it to you. Silence becomes your boundary, your healing, your weapon, and your wisdom all at once. Because when you choose silence, you are not ignoring her. You are choosing you. You are choosing peace over pressure, growth over games, power over pain. She expected drama. She expected emotion. She expected a storm, because that's what most men do. They panic. They reach out, they react, they try to fix what wasn't theirs to fix. But you chose stillness, and that stillness is what shakes her to her core, because now she's left with her own echo. Now she has to sit in the consequences of her own actions without the comfort of your attention to soften the blow. You see, silence isn't passive, it's strategic. It's the space where you take back your dignity, your self-respect, your focus. It's not about ignoring her to manipulate her, it's about honoring yourself enough to not fight someone who walked away. It's about reclaiming your energy and investing it into becoming the man who no longer needs to be seen to know he matters. And the truth is, she hears your silence louder than she ever heard your words, because when you used to speak, it came from a place of fear, from a place of lack, from a place of needing her to understand. But silence doesn't need to be understood, it demands to be felt, and it is felt deeply, because silence leaves a space only filled by self-reflection. It forces her to confront the very thing she was running from, which is the reality that she walked away from something real and now it's gone. There's a reason why the people who ghost you always come back. There's a reason why those who left you without explanation always check your story, watch your posts, ask about you through friends. They are listening to the silence, they are watching what you do. When you stop trying to get their attention, they are drawn back, not by your desperation, but by your discipline. And that is the shift that changes everything, because discipline is attractive, healing is magnetic, peace is powerful. When you stop talking about what you deserve and start living like you deserve it, your entire energy changes. When you stop explaining your worth and simply embody it, you don't have to say a word to be heard anymore. She will feel it in your absence, she will feel it in the fact that you didn't break down, she will feel it when she sees you thriving without her. And it won't make sense to her, because she thought her absence would destroy you, but instead it refined you, and that's what stings the most, because she'll realize that the silence she thought meant indifference actually meant strength, and the peace she thought meant giving up actually meant growing up. You stopped playing her game and started building your kingdom. You stopped trying to reopen a closed door and started opening new ones in places she was never meant to enter. You stopped being available for confusion and became committed to clarity. And that clarity is something she can't ignore, because it highlights everything she gave up and everything she no longer has access to. And maybe she'll reach out, maybe she'll test the waters with a casual message or a memory or an old photo. But you won't jump, you won't react, you won't fill the silence she once left you drowning in, because now you understand the power of restraint. You understand that not every message needs a reply. Not every loss needs to be fixed. Not every goodbye needs to turn into a welcome back, because silence does what words cannot. It creates space. And in that space, you healed, you matured, you evolved, you became a man who no longer lets someone else's absence define his value. And that is what makes you untouchable, not in arrogance, but in awareness. Let her wonder why you didn't reach out. Let her question how you moved on so fast. Let her feel the weight of her choices in the silence you refused to break, because while she was expecting a storm, you became the calm. And there is nothing more unsettling to someone who left in chaos than seeing the person they walked away from find peace in their own quiet. Silence is not weakness, it is wisdom. And when you choose it over noise, you don't lose, you rise. She'll come back when she realizes no one else measures up to the man who finally chose himself, because that moment when you stop trying to convince her of your value, when you stop proving your worth, when you stop putting her on a pedestal and finally put yourself first, that is the moment everything changes. Because the most dangerous man is the one who finds peace in solitude, power in growth and fulfillment in his own presence. She thought walking away would break you. She thought you'd fall apart. But instead you woke up, you realized that begging someone to stay isn't love, it's fear. And you decided to face that fear. You stopped thinking she was the only one who would ever love you, and you started realizing you are already enough with or without her attention, with or without her validation, with or without her in your life. And in that decision, in that commitment to yourself, you became rare, because most people spend their lives looking for someone to complete them. But you decided to complete yourself. You decided to stop chasing someone who didn't see your value, and instead build a life that reflects how valuable you truly are. And as you became that man, as you stepped into that power, something shifted. She started to notice, she started to feel it, not through words, not through posts, not through some dramatic comeback, But through your silence, your energy, your absence, she saw that you weren't waiting, she saw that you weren't broken, she saw that you were better not bitter, and that is what shakes her to the core, because now she has to look around and compare every man to the one she walked away from. And here's the truth, she won't find another you, she might find someone who says the right things, takes her out, buys her gifts, flatters her ego, but deep down she'll remember how she felt with you. She'll remember the peace, the loyalty, the effort, the way you listened, the way you protected, the way you loved. And one day, when she's alone, sitting in silence, that memory will hit her like a wave, because she didn't lose you, you outgrew her. And there's a difference, you see. When a man chooses himself, he becomes a standard, and standards can't be faked, they can't be replaced, they can't be substituted by potential or games, because when you evolve past the version of yourself that depended on her, you become someone even she no longer has access to, and she will come back, maybe not with words "I miss you," maybe not with a grand apology, maybe just with a text, a random message, a question disguised as small talk. But it won't be casual, it will be calculated, because now she sees what she didn't before. She sees how strong you are now, how clear you are now, how happy you are now. And that realization cuts deeper than any argument could, because it's one thing to walk away thinking you'll be missed, and it's another to walk away and realize you weren't needed. And that's the version of you she never prepared for, the one who healed, the one who matured, the one who loved her enough, let her go, and loved himself enough not to take her back. You're no longer seeking her approval, you're no longer waiting for closure, you're no longer stuck in the past replaying memories, because you've created new ones, and they don't include her, not because you hate her, not because you're cold, but because you've elevated. And now, what once felt like love feels like limitation. She thought you'd always be an option, but you became an example, and now she'll have to live with the reality that while she was out looking for more, you became more. And now she's not part of the story she used to be. The center of let her come back and see a man who doesn't flinch at her presence, a man who doesn't jump at her text, a man who doesn't need to be reminded of what he lost because he's too focused on what he's gained and what he's building now. You chose yourself, and that choice will echo louder than any love letter, louder than any plea, louder than any apology she could ever offer. Because when a man chooses himself, he doesn't just heal, he transforms. And when he transforms, he doesn't go back, he doesn't shrink, he doesn't settle. Let her remember you as the man who gave her a love that no one else could match, and the man who finally realized he didn't have to keep giving it away to someone who didn't know how to receive it. She will come back when she realizes you were the best thing she ever had, and by then you'll be long gone and far better than you ever were before.